Hello and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host Josh Size. And you guys already know what I want to talk about. Yesterday we had the former pound for pound number one, arguably right now number two or three, square off against a very formidable opponent in Shawn Porter. I am taking a few moments to digest what I saw. I haven't had the luxury of rewatching it. I bought the pay-per-view, but I don't know why ESPN's not allowing me to replay it, but whatever. I am going based off my memory, so if I misquote around or mix up certain things, I'm just going to give you the generalities of what I saw. Good fight. Not going to sit here and say it was a blowout by Terence Crawford optically. Objectively, if you look at the scorecards, you guys know what happened. Terence Crawford ended up stopping Shawn Porter officially. Optically, you saw Shawn Porter give Terence Crawford pressure, make him feel uncomfortable, and really try to basically make Bud Crawford uncomfortable. However, after watching the fight and watching what unfolded, Terence Crawford is terrifyingly good. And I know people are going to be like, oh, this was his toughest fight. But when you really, really look at it, and when I say for as much optically, it looked like Terence Crawford was in trouble. When you look at what happened, that was the game plan. The stoppage was the game plan. He immediately in the beginning, Shawn Porter tried to come out, impose his size, and execute some of that boxing I was talking to you about. I knew Shawn Porter would box a lot more, but in round one, you saw Terence Crawford take his time, be in the righty stance, get his timing of the jab, get his timing of the right hand. Clearly, Shawn Porter was trying to land the right hand. That was his game plan. Catch Shawn Porter on the inside with nice little tight hooks. I give Shawn Porter credit. He did a good job. He was making it a little more difficult than Terence Crawford is used to. However, when you look at the fight as a microcosm, in a microcosm, Terence Crawford was looking to stop him the whole time, and he was successful. I know a lot of the controversy comes from the way Shawn Porter's dad is the one that stopped the fight. But if you looked at the fight, if you looked at what Bomac and Bud were trying to do, they were trying to walk Shawn Porter down when Shawn Porter wanted to own the inside and then back out to make Bud Crawford come towards him and lure him towards him. And he caught Bud Crawford. He hit him with a lot of shots. I give him that. He did touch Crawford up. However, what you're seeing is a versatile assassin. Terence Crawford was on the front foot. He was on the back foot. He had to be strong when he had to strong. He had to be strong when he had to be strong. He was able to bully Crawford. I mean, he was able to bully Shawn Porter in certain scenarios. And when I say bully, I think people get a little confused as to what I mean by bullying. Crawford was able to do what he wanted to do. He was able to dictate to Shawn Porter what he was able to do. Shawn Porter wanted to come forward. He wanted to box, and Bud Crawford immediately had the answer for Shawn Porter. When Shawn Porter was trying to go forward, you saw Bud Crawford turn into the ropes. You saw Terence Crawford muscle and wrestle with Shawn Porter on the inside. A lot of people can't do that with Shawn. And for the exception of Errol Spence, who bullied Shawn on the inside too, sure, it was a closer fight. They got their way ultimately. When you have a game plan, it's a 12-round fight. The same way everyone was talking about how Caleb planned, Canelo's game plan the whole time was to knock Caleb Plant out. That was his game plan. That was his game plan. This was the game plan for Terence Crawford. You saw him trying to time that uppercut. You saw him trying to time that left. And from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and eventually when he knocked him out in the 10th, you saw Terence Crawford literally budding. You saw the aggression. You saw one of the best finishers in the game finish a very tough fighter. Nobody finishes Shawn Porter. I've never seen Shawn Porter finished. He was the first one to do it. And that's a testament to Bud Crawford. I'm on the track record of saying that Terence Crawford's resume at 147 was, in my opinion, subpar in comparison to, let's say, like a Danny Garcia or a even Shawn Porter or Errol Spence. But now, again, I go based off what I see. I go based off of empirical evidence, not, oh, so and so is good. He showed at 147 he is the real deal. And that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight is looking very, very difficult to call right now, based off of Errol's eye, based off what I saw with Danny Garcia. He kind of looks a little different, and maybe he's injured and we don't know. But Bud Crawford's going to be the favorite going into that fight. I'm still going to back my guy, Errol Spence, because that's been my pick for a while. I think Errol Spence is a very good fighter. However, it's going to be almost impossible to go against Bud Crawford. The movement, elite. You saw the way he was check hooking Shawn Porter on the way in. He was getting hit with right hands, but immediately came back with something to stop the momentum of Shawn Porter. When Shawn Porter was going backwards, he put the pressure on with that jab, the feints, the positioning, the fear of counters at all times. Anytime he would go forward, Shawn Porter would try to throw something, lunge in, Bud Crawford would make him pay. And Shawn Porter, I'm not saying he's a bum, but this wasn't, when you look at it, again, under a microscope, when you look at it as an entire fight, we have the benefit of hindsight 2020. He executed the game plan, and the game plan was to stop Shawn Porter and send a message to everyone. And that's exactly what he did. He could have been on the back foot. He could have boxed the entire time, but he chose to sit there and prove to the world that he is one of the best fighters. And when you look at boxing ability wise, Canelo's the more active fighter. He has more accolades. He has the undisputed championship. But if you're looking at pure boxing ability, Terence Crawford, in my opinion, is a well-versed and a more well-versed fighter than Canelo Alvarez. I know the head movement looks good. I know the power looks fantastic. What he's doing is great, and you have to hold him to the position he is. Bud Crawford hasn't fought the names that Canelo Alvarez has. He hasn't done what Canelo Alvarez has at 147. However, Bud Crawford is a bad boy, man. He is hands down right now, I think, one of the most talented fighters in the world. And I think he showed that yesterday. He got touched, was never hurt. Shawn Porter's strong. He tried to bully Bud Crawford. You never saw him wilt. For someone so rail thin and wiry, the wrestling background, I don't know what it is, but his balance is immaculate. His footwork is immaculate. That jab he has from both positions is immaculate. The ability to switch, the ability to go forward, the ability to go backwards, the ability to finish. It's 100% confirmed that Terence Crawford isn't afraid of anybody, and Terence Crawford would be a handful for anyone in the world. You just got to call it what it is. Shawn Porter is not a bum. I don't think it was a bad stoppage. I think his dad saw that body work that Crawford was hitting him with, that left to the solar plexus, that left to the liver he was checking, the left over the top, and that right hook over the top of his jab. Shawn Porter was going to get stopped. I know Shawn Porter's dad's excuses or whatever the fuck he was talking about were lame. It was lame. We didn't get to see the stoppage unfold. But okay, Shawn Porter was banging the floor. Did you see Shawn Porter walking forward? Did you see Shawn Porter looking to keep going? No, his balance was off. Could he have kept going? Yeah. But your job as a trainer is to stop the fight. I think the stoppage was fine. I don't think you let Shawn Porter, who's 34, get knocked out and essentially damage what he has going on in the future with his announcing career, his fighting career. He was down. You get dropped 2 times, the fight immediately becomes completely out of reach. And I didn't see Shawn Porter adjust to what Terence was doing. Terence dialed it up, and Shawn Porter couldn't answer that. Kenny Porter, respect what you did. I just wish he wouldn't have gone into, the preparation before the fight. Keep that under wraps. Shawn Porter retired. Let him go out on his shield and just say, I thought he was hurt. I pulled my son out. I care about him. I felt like we were losing the fight. Don't go into this whole, our preparation wasn't good. I knew this beforehand. This was my plan the entire time. Bud Crawford would have stopped Shawn Porter. And I know people want to see him struggle. Same thing with Canelo. Same thing with these guys that get to the top. You see an interesting fight, but in chess, just because you lose a couple of pieces with a grandmaster, or a grandmaster gives you a couple of pieces, doesn't mean you're going to checkmate him. Doesn't mean you're winning the chess match. If you can't see that Terence Crawford dominated Shawn Porter, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else you want from the guy. He stopped somebody that's never been stopped. You can't sit here and say that if the fight went 12 rounds, the game plan from the jump was to stop Shawn Porter. He said it beforehand. I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to knock you out. I'm going to make a statement. You saw it with the bad intentions. He thought the check hooks were going to get him. He thought the uppercut would get him earlier. The fight didn't end earlier, but it ended. And if you really think about it, let's say, okay, Shawn Porter did well for the first half of the fight. It made it to the 10th. There were still 3 rounds left. It's a 12-round fight, right? You break it down into fourths, 3 rounds, 3 rounds, 3 rounds. There was still a whole quarter of the fight left. He stopped them. Case closed. Do you think Shawn Porter would have made it 3 more rounds, truthfully, or 2 more rounds after this fight? I mean, after the one he got stopped in? I don't think so. I really don't. And I'll rewatch it and give you my opinion again upon rewatching it. But based on what I saw from there was one particular instance where I just knew, all right, Bud Crawford's trying to knock him out. He's showing that it's over. It was a dominance play. It was a psychological play. There was a 20-second sequence at the end where Bud didn't throw any punches. Shawn Porter tried coming in, and Crawford pushed him back against the ropes. Stood his ground, pushed him, followed him around, pushed him. All he did was just push Shawn Porter against the ropes. Push him back, push him back, push him back. For me, that was the moment I was like, he got him. Physically, Shawn Porter just can't match Bud. And again, I am not the biggest Terence Crawford fan at all. But after seeing this, it's terrifying how good he is, because he has to be whatever he can be, whatever he has to be. And I don't think there are enough fighters out there, except for the Shakur Stevensons, except for the Andre Wards from the past, except for the Canelo Alvarezes, except for the Usyks of the world, Teofimo of the world, Lomachenko, even to a certain degree, has shown that when you're the best, you are whatever you have to be to win. And Terence Crawford can bang, he can pressure you, he can box on the back foot, he can do both. And to me, people think this was his hardest fight, but to me, this was hands down one of his best performances. Because one, you're not the bigger guy. This is a weight class that, yeah, he's been there for a while, but upon moving up, wasn't always at 147. So this was his first true top tier, high level welterweight. Shawn Porter touched him. We got to see that he has a world class chin because Errol got touched and he got hurt a few times. I saw Terence Crawford get hit with one hook, and that really kind of put him on. Well, he got touched and you saw he was stunned, but he showed resiliency. He showed on the inside that bully ball or bully boxing isn't going to work on him because he's strong. So I like the IQ, the ability to finish someone that's never been finished. He saw Shawn Porter got hurt and he just went for it. So truthfully, shout out to Bud Crawford. This is hands down, in my opinion, one of the most impressive performances for me, especially at 147. There are a bunch of good Bud Crawford performances. The Victor Postal one was another one at 140 that probably rivals this in terms of like implications and whatnot. But I'm so impressed by this fight. I just think the game plan was to knock him out. When you see a game plan executed flawlessly, of course, we have I have, based on this video, the gift of hindsight 2020. You see the plan unfold, but he got the stoppage. I thought it could have been earlier, right? That was my prognostication. I thought it would be earlier. That's why I don't really like saying, oh, it's going to be, round 3 or round 4, because again, one little exchange, a hold, a referee stops, it kind of changes the rhythm. But overall, the KO, the TKO, the stoppage was the game plan. And kudos to Crawford. I think if after this, I heard he's not with Top Rank anymore, which is fantastic news. It opens up the doors. Who's going to be next? Is it going to be Ugas? Maybe after he has his mandatory. Collect that second belt, sign with Heyman. Then you got 2 belt holders with 2 belts fighting each other. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. I don't see them making the fight right away because PBC is going to want to make him fight the whole stable, have more opponents, have everyone excited. Maybe they'll get Errol to get the Ugas fight. But once Heyman signs you, it no longer becomes you're on the other side of the street. You're actually on the same side of the street. So him not being with Top Rank anymore is a beautiful thing to hear. And let's just give Bud Crawford his credit. Shawn Porter gave a great fight, comes with the Shawn Porter energy. You saw him doing a lot of good things, showed a really, really good ring IQ. I just think he was outmatched, and truthfully, what an incredible performance. I don't look at the scorecards here because he was losing. In terms of the scope of a 12-round fight, he was losing. Crawford was playing chess and he was looking to checkmate Shawn, and he did. So made Shawn resign. It's like, you know what the inevitable is. His dad knows him better than anyone else. He's in the gym with him. He knows more or less what was coming. And just kudos to Terence Crawford. Bravo, bud.